So starting with the new Brazilian middle class. This is very important, and Paul already made some reference to it. We've been going through this major process of our middle class growing very, very quickly. In the last 10 years, a group of people became much more numerous in Brazil. I'm talking about the C-class. What was exactly the change? If you look at numbers from 2002, the middle class, the C-class, added up to 38 million people, and now it's at 53 million people. In a country where you have just under 200 million, we're talking about more than 50% of the population. This is why I was saying to you before, no way we can do business in Brazil without understanding this group of people and their needs. And it's going to keep growing. It's estimated that by 2022, they're going to be 57% of our population. Okay? And of course, as they grow economically, they're going to make up the new upper classes. So understanding them and keeping them with you is a way of guaranteeing that you can grow with them as well as they move up. What does it mean in terms of actual cash, actual income? We're talking about people that, if you look at the nomenclature on the left-hand side, the people we're looking at more closely are the segments in pink: upper middle, middle, and lower middle class. Okay? And they're people who make, if you look at the household income main on the right side of our chart, they make anything between £525 per month, and this is a family income number, okay, to £958 per month. So it isn't much money if you're thinking of a 4 to 5 member family, and they have to pay for housing, transport, education, food, etc. Why are they so important? Well, not very difficult to imagine that if we're talking about a very large group of people, their consumption collectively is going to be quite impressive, £329 billion per year. So if you look at the Brazilian middle class in terms of a comparison with other countries, you will find out, although we are the 12th country in population, just considering although we are talking about half our population, if we considered the middle class, just the Brazilian middle class, as a country isolated from the rest, it would be the 12th country in population and the 18th country in consumption. It would consume more than the total population of the Netherlands or Switzerland, just for perspective. Okay. Now, what does their expenditure split look like? About 2.5% of their money goes into education. That's about £8 billion per year. So it's a small percentage, but again, it's a considerable sum of money if you consider the group altogether. And it means that we people who do things in education have to look at it closely and understand whatever solutions you decide to offer in Brazil will be competing with basic education and higher ed as well, okay, because that's where they get their budget for English from. That's it for a brief overview of our middle class. A lot of people with quite a considerable sum to invest in education. They're eager to do so. And now we're going to look at education in Brazil. just very quickly. Let's look at what happens when you look at the educational level of Brazilians. On the left-hand side, you have a bar graph for 48 to 60-year-olds, and on the right-hand side, younger people from 18 to 30. So if you look at the blue, yellow, and green sectors of the graphs, that's higher ed. You see older people were not so schooled in higher ed as younger people are today. You have 57% of the Brazilian youngsters, or young adults, if we can call 30-year-olds young adults. I like to think so, yeah? They are either pursuing higher ed or they have a degree already. So that's a great improvement versus the previous generations. So 1/3 of these Brazilians still, however, face literacy problems. It is a very serious concern for us Brazilians that although our numbers in education are improving, there are people who can still not understand what they're reading, even when they get to higher ed. So it's a very serious problem not to be able to understand a text in your own language. Yeah? So if you're teaching English, you need to take into account that those difficulties are going to be there. I'm sure you are familiar with functional illiteracy. It's just what I said before, not being able to understand a simple text, although you are considered literate, but you're functionally illiterate. Now, for 8 out of 10 people who are pursuing higher ed, or to Brazilians in general, in that age group that we interviewed, they think higher ed is a way of getting a better paid job. This is so important. It's a very different way of looking at higher education. You may pursue higher education because you're interested in knowing more, becoming a more complete person, having all kinds and manners of personal objectives. Now, young Brazilians are very pragmatic. They're willing to invest in education because it is a way to get a better paid job. If you don't know that, and you don't know how to talk to them and how to address their need, you're probably not going to get the message right. So this is very important to consider. Look at the number of people who said the main reason to pursue higher education is to improve their curriculum. It goes up to 78%.